Welcome back to another episode of the Untitled Football Podcast. Today we're going to talk about Week 3, some overreaction, reaction, recap, review, all that type of stuff. And yeah, these intros just keep getting shorter and shorter every podcast. So I might as well just cut it out. Might as well just get right into the game. But let's start off with the first game. Jaguars versus Dolphins. The Jaguars came into this game as 3.5-point favorites, I think. Damn. Okay, yeah, they came into this game as 2.5-point favorites. The Dolphins end up covering, so they won the game, so they ended up covering that. The Jags had a poor performance this game. Like, they really weren't good. And they just really weren't good. Minshew fumbled a ton, made some really bad decisions. They weren't good. So, and then on the other hand, Ryan Fitzpatrick was great. Devontae Parker was making catches with injuries to both legs, which is kind of insane. But Ryan Fitzpatrick made some great throws under pressure. But Ryan Fitzpatrick played a good game. The Jags played an awful game. That's the volatile nature of the two quarterbacks that were in this game, Minshew and Fitzpatrick, respectively. So, yeah, that's just the nature of these two quarterbacks. You're gonna get games where they're really good. You're gonna get games where they're really bad. And this was a really good Fitz game and a really bad Minshew game. And Myles Gaskin showed that he might be a potential back to like a pretty good back. He broke like 7 tackles, though he only had 3 yards. He only ran for 3 yards per carry, which is actually super low. 22 attempts, 66 yards. He still busted out some good runs, but for the most part, that O-line is still like trash. So yeah, James Robinson, on the other hand, for the Jags was a pretty good back, and it didn't matter because Minshew didn't play well. So the team ended up losing the game. Minshew was bad. He just took some sacks, fumbles, interceptions, bad plays. And then there was also some drops mixed in from Chris Conley. Like, he wasn't great this past week. He really wasn't. But that's just what you're going to get with Gardner Minshew. On to the next game, though. Chicago Bears versus the Falcons. A lot happened in this game. Like, Nick Foles coming in, another classic Atlanta Falcon implosion. And these teams are almost the complete opposite. The Falcons are a team that, based on how the games have gone, they're like an 0-3 team that should be like 3-0. Well, 2-1 because they never were really in that Seahawks game. And then Chicago is a 3-0 team based off how their games went. That should be 0-3 right now. So that's interesting. Nick Foles comes in with the visor, leads the comeback, makes a hell of a throw to Anthony Miller for a touchdown to win the game. After Trubisky finally gets benched. Crazy how the Bears went like 3-0 despite starting the wrong quarterback in all those games. Okay. Mitch Trubisky gets benched. Nick Foles comes in, throws 3 touchdowns. That's interesting. Atlanta somehow finds a way to implode. Like, this could be Dan Quinn's last game. Okay, just kidding. He probably won't get fired after this game, but the clock has to be ticking on him. Yeah, Atlanta sucks. The Bears are one of the most fraudulent 3-0 teams in NFL history, probably, as they were trailing. I don't think they were ever losing against the Giants, but they probably should have lost that game. The Giants also made some really bad decisions, which kept the Bears alive, really. But yeah, the Bears are a team that should probably be 0-3 right now. They came back twice. With Trubisky starting in one of them. But now they have Nick Foles starting. They have viable quarterback play, so this Bears team could be pretty dangerous when they have a quarterback that's actually not awful. Well, then again, Nick Foles also isn't that good either, but he's better than Trubisky, and he probably should have been starting all year, but for some reason wasn't. So that's about all I really have to say, man. The Falcons are terrible, and somehow blow lead every week, and I'm done betting the Falcons. And I'll probably do it next week, too. They'll probably come out next week. And who they play next week? They'll probably come out next week, slap the Green Bay Packers in Lambeau on Monday Night Football, and then beat the Falcons, the most confusing team in the NFL. But the Bears with viable quarterback play could be a pretty... I don't know how much of a force they'll be. And I don't know how viable Nick Foles will be, because he hasn't really been a good quarterback anywhere except for in Chip Kelly's offense. So, Doug Peterson, actually. But other than, 2 spots in his career, and he's been on, 6 teams, he's only been good in, 2. I mean, Nick Foles isn't that good of a quarterback. So, we'll have to wait and see on the Bears. But let's go to the next game. Buffalo versus Los Angeles. The Bills, speaking of the Falcons, almost pulled a true Atlanta Falcons. They were up 28-3 at one point in the game. Almost let the whole game slip away. This was a weird game. Some pretty so-so officiating in this game occurred in this game on both sides. Funny how Josh Allen led the league in dropped interceptions coming into this game with 3. And the one interception he throws isn't even his fault. That's funny. A pretty bad call on the interception, but I mean, their offense really stalled out in the second half. I mean, they fumbled a ton. Josh Allen fumbled a ton. They had the interception, which wasn't really Josh Allen's fault, but, it was still a play that kind of swung the game. And then they couldn't stop the Rams at all, really. So, I mean, the Bills' defense hasn't been good so far this season. And they're winning games because of their offense, which is a change from last year when the defense kind of had to drag the offense. And this year, it's kind of the other way around. The offense is really efficient. They're number 1 in EPA per pass play. They're top 10 in total EPA. But, yeah. The offense is playing well for Buffalo right now. And they're winning games because of their offense. Yeah, they're 4th in EPA per play, and total EPA per play. Yeah, but the Rams came back from down by 1 million. They're still running play action at an insanely high rate. 54% of their plays are on play action passes, which is kind of insane because that's a really high number. They're holding Jared Goff's hand still. He made some really good throws though, into some tight windows down the field. He was solid today. He's been pretty good all year, if we're being honest. He was pretty good again today. So, yeah, Jared Goff's playing pretty well, though he usually helped out a ton by the scheme. Josh Allen made some really good throws. He is really developed from last season. Though the statistical output is a bit inflated due to some really good red zone opportunities and really good weapons, but he is playing much better and like one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL probably this season. But the stats are a bit inflated, and I'll go into that a little bit more because there's a couple people that have some slightly inflated stats, but yeah, the Bills could be a contender if Josh Allen can stay viable because based off all the data we have from his career, this is a massive outlier from an accuracy standpoint. So either he stays at this level, regresses a bit towards the mean, and then he's a bit like I don't know. So we'll have to see as the season goes on. He looks 20 times better from an accuracy standpoint because if you like watching the game, he's still like the same Josh Allen in terms of running around in circles as if he doesn't really know how to play the quarterback position, but now he's just a bit more accurate. He still plays as if he doesn't know how to play the quarterback position, but he's just more accurate and he's probably the most fun player to watch in the NFL. But yeah, he fumbled, which ended up losing them the game. The pass rush for the Rams in the second half of that game, it felt like he was under pressure every play, Josh Allen. And if I look at how many percentage, like he was second in terms of percentage of his dropbacks, where he was under pressure with 45.9% of his dropbacks. And I would like to say most of those came in the second half. Like it looked like he was under siege in the second half of that game. So yeah, it was a really nice drive at the end of the game though. But the touchdown itself came off of a pretty bad call and probably shouldn't have happened. But whatever. The Bills are potential contenders. If Josh Allen can stay viable and be at least a decent quarterback. Like this defense hasn't played well, but they still have the pieces to put together good performances. Like this is the same unit basically from last year. So I don't see why they're so bad right now. But I mean I feel like they could like the defense. I mean defense is a difficult thing to predict because it's never going to be the same week to week. You play a good offense, you're going to look worse. You play a bad offense, you're going to look better. So, but what really matters is they have the pieces to make plays on defense. And yeah, Tremaine Edmonds was back. He was awful today. Yeah. But the Bills go up to 3-0. The Rams have surprised me from a record standpoint. I don't think they beat Dallas or Philly or like so it is what it is. Let's go to the next game of the week, Washington versus Cleveland. Washington fell to the Browns 34-20. The Browns covered 7. I mean, Washington, Dwayne Haskins was garbage. Like, real bad garbage. He had an interception drop, 3 interceptions, a fumble. It wasn't good. It wasn't a good day for Dwayne. It wasn't a good day for Dwayne Haskins. And Washington on defense did kind of what I expected him to. Like, they got pressure, made Baker Mayfield do some pretty odd things in the pocket. Like, I mean, he always does, but kind of like running around and... but he was really only under pressure. He's only under pressure the ninth highest percentage in the NFL this week. I mean, they didn't have Chase Young, so that's probably a big deal on why, but I don't think Chase Young would have made that big of a difference this game because the offense was just bad. So him being there, I don't think that makes the team. I don't think that changes the game to a win. But he wasn't there nonetheless. They had an awful offense. Their offense now ranks still 28th in EPA per play, it just feels like they're so much worse. It feels like they don't move the ball ever. And they really only have one guy on their team that's actually a good player on offense, which is Terry McLaurin. So, I mean, Washington is bad. They are deep in the running for the number 1 overall pick, though they have a win. And though this game looks sort of close in the beginning, but they're really just not a good team. Cleveland, they didn't even play that good of a game. Washington is just awful. Washington is just a terrible team. And, yeah. Cleveland, I mean, they ran the ball. Nick Chubb was really good. I mean, they threw the ball. Baker didn't even throw the ball that well. But Washington is just garbage. So they didn't really have to do that much because Washington wasn't going to put points on the board. They have the worst offense in the NFL. So, yeah, Washington could be moved. They should move on from Haskins. I mean, I would. I mean, because you're probably, at this rate, you're probably going to be picking in the top of the draft. Like, top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But then again, I think Washington's a team that might beat a team that they're probably not supposed to beat, but actually, I don't even know at this point. They're awful. Like, to win a game, you have to score points, and they're not gonna and it doesn't, and they don't score points. But so yeah, you should be looking on from Dwayne Haskins potentially. If you're in the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and Trevor Lawrence / Justin Fields is available, I'd take him. Speaking of Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields, I think I'm gonna post a mock draft soon. I'm not quite sure when, because I'm recording this podcast on Monday, and I could drop the mock draft this day, which would make this whole thing I'm saying right now pretty irrelevant, because the mock draft might already be out. Nonetheless, let's get on to the next game, though, with Tennessee versus Minnesota. Tennessee manages to win this game, come back, and beat the Vikings, who were really bad coming into this game. They showed, like, the emergence of Justin Jefferson, if this is a reoccurring thing, really helps the team. They probably won't bottom out if that's the case, like I thought they would before, because it's like Justin Jefferson wasn't playing well, or really, like, Justin Jefferson had like 8 targets and like 5 catches, like, before this week. So yeah, but this week he was on fire. He was their guy this week. So yeah, but before this week, Justin Jefferson had 45 routes, which is second on the team. 6 targets, 5 catches. That drastically changed itself this week, as their offense played a respectable performance. But Kirk Cousins had a pretty bad interception, which ended up going for 6 and getting negated. The Titans keep pounding Derrick Henry. He actually had a good game this week, though, so let me stop. Tannehill made a couple throws, but overall he wasn't amazing. So, yeah. Overall he wasn't amazing because of had that pretty bad pick to Harrison Smith. He wasn't great today, but and had a fumble too. So he wasn't great today. He wasn't great, and they probably didn't deserve to win the game. They kicked a ton of field goals and all that, and Minnesota imploded on the last drive. But then again, you could also say the Titans are missing their 2 most valuable non-quarterback players, in Adoree Jackson and A.J. Brown, coming into this game. So they did all this without arguably their 2 best players, or 2 most valuable players. So I don't know. Tennessee, from a point margin standpoint, is pretty fraudulent this year, but they've dealt with injuries to pretty good and important players at important positions. So I mean, like I don't know if they're fraudulent or what. Like they're kind of in the right spot, but that 3-0, their point margin compared to their record.
When you need your bank, capital.
Oh man. But their point margin compared to their record, they're like +6 average margin. Oh, like +6 point differential. Not average, but they just like total point differential, like +6 against a pretty bad Broncos team. And damn, I totally forgot who they played week 2. But they beat them, obviously, because they're 3-0. Let me find out though. They played the Jaguars and only won by 3. So they're possibly fraudulent, but at the same time, I don't think they're that, like, because I like their roster when everybody's healthy. Like, they have probably the best roster top to bottom in their division, maybe? I don't know. But this game was Derrick Henry, and like Derrick Henry finally played well, and they keep pounding him the ball. Like he was at like 3.1 per carry for like half of this game, and then he busts off a couple good runs. But they should really lean off of Henry a bit more, and they'd probably win by more points instead of trying to punch Derrick Henry into the hole and 3 yards in a cloud of dust. Like that's what I mean. Whatever. Derrick Henry finally played well, and obviously, like I said earlier, they win the game only by 1 point against a pretty bad Vikings team. So, and it's like the Vikings still can't cover anybody, but you still decide to run. I mean, they don't have a good defensive front, but even still, like throwing the ball would just be 10 times more efficient than running it for 2 yards in a cloud of dust. Like Derrick Henry hasn't played well all season, and they keep going back to him. Like you need to change your game plan if you're Tennessee. Like you don't need to. There's no reason to run Derrick Henry 30 times for the tune of 3.3 a carry. Like yeah, he's gonna finish the game with a good number. He leads the league in carries by like 70 right now because they run him 1,000 times a game. But let me calm down. Let's go to the next game. I almost said Vikings again. The Patriots versus the Raiders. Patriots win and cover 7. I don't remember that line being all the way out there, but yeah, okay. They won 36-20, and Cam Newton scored like 1 touchdown in total. Rex Burkhead finished the game with 3 touchdowns. And this is so adversity of the week. I decided to start Cam Newton in fantasy. Like, the Raiders aren't that good. They had a big play negated, I think. Like, the throw to Hunter Renfrow. I don't quite sure remember what happened that play, but then they ended up kicking a field goal on that drive. So, yeah, Derek Carr. Derek Carr has been pretty good this year. Derek Carr has been he's been pretty decent this year, but I don't know. The Raiders as a whole aren't good. He had a couple fumbles, and yeah, but he hasn't been awful this year. I mean, we can say he hasn't really been awful any year, really, but he plays he's average. He's an average quarterback, but yeah, Cam Newton didn't throw the ball nearly as well as he did against Seattle. And the Raiders arguably have a worse defense than Seattle's. I mean, Seattle's defense isn't good at all either, so I don't know. He didn't throw the ball. He didn't throw the ball well. He did not throw the ball well this week. But the team as a whole ran the ball really well. They ran 38 times, 6.6 per carry, 250 yards, 2 TDs. Like, as a team, they just ran all over Oakland, which I mean, sure, they ran the ball at a higher per carry than they passed the ball. Sony Michel had a big breakaway run, even though he's still probably like one of the worst starting running backs in the NFL, but whatever. Las Vegas is okay. I keep calling them Oakland. Like I always call them Oakland. I need to start calling them Las Vegas or just the Raiders. Derek Carr. Yeah, he had. Well, this game wasn't as good as the other games this season. Like he wasn't. Like he's been playing pretty well this season, even though he's still not really going deep. It's like, I mean, I think he has more attempts. I think he's on pace to have more attempts throwing the ball down the field than he really ever has, but it just doesn't, something just doesn't feel right about those targets. And he's still leaving a lot on the table in terms of going down the field. Like he's still not doing it. Except for that Hunter Renfrow throw. That was a really good throw. So, yeah, but in that game, he went down the field 3 times, completed 2 of them. Yeah, the Patriots won, as expected. And we're going to get on to the next game. Depression. Eagles. Giants versus the 49ers. The Giants lost 36-9 against Nick Mullins and a hodgepodge of replacement players. And they got absolutely stepped on by the 49ers practice squad. They somehow squeezed a 8.2 yards per attempt passing game out of Nick Mullins, which is insane in itself. Kyle Shanahan, as we all knew already, is a phenomenal play caller. So they come in a basically a gimme game for it. Like, I wouldn't say like a gimme, but a game in which the Giants should probably win. They play like shit on offense and defense. So, yeah, but the 49ers finished this game with, finished this week with the number 1 EPA per play on EPA per dropback this week by a pretty sizable margin. I don't know how that happens when you have Nick Mullins at quarterback. Kyle Shanahan is a phenomenal play caller. He was getting Brandon Ayuk involved with sweeps and getting him more involved with the running game. He used him similarly to how we used Deebo Samuel. Yeah, but the Giants, on the other hand, weren't really good. They were awful. In fact, Daniel Jones wasn't really that good. I mean, their running backs didn't do anything but good on the Giants for not giving them too much volume. So, like, Daniel Jones just threw the ball badly. Like, he wasn't. This was a poor performance from New York. Games like this might have you picking him at number 1 overall. Like, you just lost to Nick Mullins and not practice squad level, but like Jeff Wilson. Like, let's look at the receiver core. Kendrick Bourne. Okay. I don't know if you guys can hear the plane in the background, but there's a plane in the background. Brandon Ayuk, Kendrick Bourne, Trent Taylor, Mohamed Sanu. Like, the group of receivers isn't good that Nick Mullins is throwing to. Now, preseason, I said that the Giants have probably the worst secondary in the NFL. And that seems to hold true every week, despite James Bradbury not even playing bad. But the 49ers were I don't know, like Nick Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan is really good, really, really good. So, man, Nick Mullins is probably gonna get like that. He's probably gonna get a contract. Nick Mullins had an A.dot of 7.2, which is higher than Derek Carr, Patrick Mahomes, Cam Newton, Jimmy Garoppolo. So he ran. So Kyle Shanahan ran an offense in which Nick Mullins is throwing the ball further down the field than Jimmy Garoppolo. That in itself is a tad bit interesting. So, yeah, like the Giants are awful. That's really the main takeaway from this game. Let's go on to the next game. The Cincinnati Bengals versus the Eagles in a tie. This game went like it was kind of like this game didn't really go how I expected it to go. I mean, from a score standpoint, it did, but like overtime and then a tie, and then like the Bengals just took the tie, and then like both teams punted like 7 times in overtime. It's like nobody ever. It's like no one wanted to win this game. This game lasted about 9 hours. It was on all the way through halftime of the Panthers Chargers game. Joe Burrow took a huge shot and then got up and played like an absolute superstar today. Made some really, really good plays. This was probably the best game of his career, potentially. It didn't result in the win, but this was probably the best game of his career. So, yeah, Joe Burrow had a career high so far, 7.1 yards per attempt. So he went down the field way more often than he did did prior to this week. Like this game should have not. Joe Burrow still has a 0% deep ball completion rate. Adjusted. No. He had a 0% adjusted completion rate. He's under 10 right now. A 6.3 adjusted completion rate on deep balls. That's not good. That's not good at all. But they're getting the ball out quicker with Joe Burrow, as he had a 2.4 time average time to pass. But they're trying to get the ball out quicker. Their offensive line is awful. The offensive line is terrible in Cincinnati. But Wentz, let's go back to Wentz. Wentz actually played he played a pretty bad game for about 3/4 of it. But in the fourth quarter, he was a bit better. He made a nice run that ended up tying the game up. He made a nice throw to Goddard that could have ended up winning the game in overtime, but then they took a delay of game and they ended up punting. It was a really odd turn of events at the end of that game, I'll say. But yeah, Joe Burrow was under pressure 44% of the time, which was 4th most this week. Derek Carr. Carson Wentz, on the other hand, was under pressure 23% of his dropbacks, which is a really low amount, which was 22nd on the week. So people tend to blame everything on the O-line, and that's just not true. Carson Wentz is playing bad. So I don't know if they could replace him. I don't think they'll replace him. But you drafted Jalen Hurts in the 2nd round. It might be time to see what he has, because you just tied up with the Bengals against the Bengals in a game that should have been the game where your offense looked good again, because the Bengals defense hasn't been great this year. I mean, but we didn't really expect it to be great. I was higher on their defense than a lot of people, but I didn't expect it. I expected their defense to be like good enough to the point where if their offense was as good as I thought it could have been, then they could have won games. I wouldn't say it has been that either. Their defense has been pretty shitty. But the Eagles are playing like Carson Wentz is playing like the worst quarterback in the NFL. Carson Wentz sucks right now. Carson Wentz is awful right now. Fumbling, interceptions, dropped interceptions, just wild misses, and it's not even like he's making the wrong decision on these throws. He's just missing them badly. Like he's making the right decisions, and just he can't make the throw. He just can't make the throws. Like he's making. It's not like he's throwing interceptions due to bad decision making. Like, maybe it's like a receiver chemistry timing thing, kind of, but like it's like he's throwing some of these balls on time. He's just leaving them inside, high, low, all this stuff. It's not like he's making the wrong decision on these plays. Like, he's making the right decision, but he's been so inaccurate this season that they've led to interceptions. Except for maybe some of the ones against, like, he threw 50-50 that got intercepted today, or yesterday, got intercepted yesterday, so... I mean, there's a couple interceptions where he's making the wrong decision, but most of them aren't even the wrong decision. He's just inaccurate. He's been, like, poor in terms of accuracy. But Joe Burrow continues to rise to superstardom. Though, he's really going to need to fix that deep ball. Like, what the hell is going on there? Like, he was really good at throwing that in college. Right now, he has an adjusted completion percentage under 8%. That's really weird. But yeah. Oh, and I just got news that Nick Foles will be starting for the Bears. But yeah, the Eagles are bad. Like, I don't know if they'll ever bounce back at this point. They play against the 49ers. Rest in peace to like Nate Gary and all those linebackers, like Davion Taylor, all those linebackers, they are going to get put in a blender next week against the 49ers. Good luck to them, though. They will get incarcerated. That was about to be the wrong word. They will be obliterated by the 49ers. Kyle Shanahan is going to just paint a big red target bullseye on the back of Nate Gary and Davion Taylor and all those linebackers. They will be abused next week. They will be abused next week. But, yeah, let's go on to the next game. Pittsburgh versus the Texans. Houston started this game off really good and then didn't score in the second half. Watson made some really good throws. Watson's a good quarterback, but, like, yeah. Watson made some pretty good throws, but, I mean, they didn't score in the second half. They were completely stalled in the second half. And I don't know. I still don't really think the Steelers' offense is good. Like, it just looks so, like, Big Ben misses some throws. Like, it's a disjointed offense, I'll say. Like, their offense still isn't a great offense. But this game, they controlled the clock, controlled the ball, and it ended up working out because Houston couldn't score. So... yeah, James Conner ran the ball 18 times for 109 yards, 6.1 per carry. James Conner this is probably like the best game he's had in about 2 years. Anthony McFarland was also pretty good. Like, they ran the ball really well, and it ended up working out for them because the Houston just couldn't score. So, yeah. Houston... at least they show that they're capable of putting together somewhat of a good offensive performance for some period of time. Like they were good. They were really good in the first half, bad in the second half. But Steelers have really good defense. But I don't know. I feel like the Texans. I really think they can't go anywhere but up here. Like they're 0-3 right now, but they did play against Chiefs, Ravens, and Steelers. Next week their schedule gets so much easier from here. Like next week they're gonna face up against Minnesota. They suck. Like you could beat them, I think. Like they play up against Minnesota, and then they play up against Jacksonville. Then they play against Tennessee, Green Bay, Jacksonville again, Cleveland, Patriots, Lions, Colts, Bears, Bengals, Titans. Like their schedule gets much easier from here. So I don't foresee them like this probably a scenario in which this team is like 7-6 and everyone goes, "Oh, Houston has a chance." Like I don't think that they're going to be picked. Well, they don't have a first round pick, but I don't think they'll be picking in the top picks of the draft. I don't think that pick will be in the top picks. Like I think this team will definitely bounce back in the second half. Like I thought this team was probably going to. I had them winning the division. I kind of flipped on that, and I had the Titans win the division, winning the division, and the Texans in second, and the Colts in third. But that's mainly driven by Deshaun Watson, and he hasn't been that great this season so far. So that kind of like the offense is still kind of figuring itself out. It still looks, like I said for the Steelers, disjointed. It still doesn't look clean offensively. Guys get open, Deshaun Watson misses them. Guys don't get open. Deshaun Watson has a ton of time in the pocket. Guys don't get open. He has to do magic stuff, takes a sack. The offensive line gets obliterated. Guys get open. Like, it's bad. It's a really chopped up, choppy offense is probably the best way to describe it, I guess. I mean, I don't know if that's the best way to describe it, but that's a way to describe it. The offense still looks a bit disjointed. And they could be on key for a bounce-back performance against the Vikings. I want to see what this... okay, so it looks like Houston are favorites coming into this game from what I'm seeing right now. It looks like they're 3.5 point favorites, but are they really 3.5 points? Well, no, they're probably 3.5 points better than the Vikings. That's interesting. They're favored coming into this game. I for some reason I thought there'd be a bit more of an overlay. That line probably closes itself potentially by the time the week comes around. But by the time the games come around, that line might end up closing itself to like maybe like a 1.5 or I don't know, because I mean the Vikings, because the Titans were only 2.5 point favorites. So are the Titans and Texans, the way they played this season, really even on a neutral field? Or are they a point better than the Titans? I don't think so. But then again, the Titans are kind of I don't know. I feel like that line might end up getting closer to like 1.5-ish, but I'll talk more about that on the preview podcast when it's a bit closer to the game. Yeah, but the Texans lose to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and let's go to the 4:00 slate, and let's start off with Indianapolis versus New York. New York, as in the Jets, of course, but yeah, this Jets team came in as 10.5 point underdogs, and for a second I was contemplating, like, would it be a sharp bet to bet the Jets plus 10? That's a really large number to cover. Like, you don't see too many double-digit point spreads in the NFL. But then again, the Jets might not be an NFL team in terms of their, like, how good they are. They might not be an NFL team. At this point, I don't know if I think Clemson might beat them. I mean, Clemson has a far better Clemson has a far better receiver core than what they're throwing to right now. Kalen fucking Ballage led the team in targets today. Chris Herndon had 5 as well, but Kalen Ballage and like your number one, like the receiver that had the most targets was Braxton Berrios. The Jets receiver core is awful, and at this point, I don't really even know if Trevor Lawrence can save this. Like, this is, well, then again, like, they do have Mims coming back eventually. Like, he's injured. Like, their best guys are injured. So, like, when they have their guys back, and if, like, I was going to say win, but we don't, it's not a foregone conclusion they get the number 1 overall pick, but it's pretty damn likely. So, let's say if they get Trevor Lawrence, hypothetically, they get their guys back and Perriman, Jamison Crowder, who's one of the better slot receivers in the NFL. Denzel Mims, I had a first round grade on him coming out of the draft this year. I like him a lot. But there's like a lot of boom bust potential there. But if Trevor Lawrence is Trevor Lawrence, like he's probably the guy that's gonna bring it all out. So yeah. I mean the game, Sam Darnold was bad. He was missing throws. I mean, I say stuff about the weapons, but like the interceptions were really his fault. Not really the weapons, but the weapons are like horrendous. So, yeah, Phillip Rivers played well again. Like the stats aren't that good. He's not making mistakes though. Like the thing is, well, except for against Jacksonville, he's not really he's not doing anything spectacular. Like he's just kind of. They're deploying a really, really run heavy attack. This week, Jonathan Taylor finished the game with only 13 carries. But as a team, they ran the ball 31 times, 119 yards. They didn't run the ball as much as they did last week, but they're still deploying a pretty run heavy attack at its core. Phillip Rivers making sure none of their receivers are viable fantasy options. Because, I mean, he's not doing anything like, he's been good, but he hasn't, like, I don't know how to describe it. He's at a point where, I don't know, I genuinely don't know how good this team is. Like, they lost to Jacksonville, but it was really only a couple bad decisions from Phillip Rivers that ended up swaying that game the other way. Because Jacksonville didn't stop that team once. So, like, they really haven't been stopped. Like, there's really been a couple bad decisions from Phillip Rivers. Like, their offense really hasn't been shut down. But, yeah, I genuinely don't know I really don't know how good this team is. Phillip Rivers has been kept super clean, under pressure, only 17% of his dropbacks, which was 35th out of 35 this week. Or on the season, he was 35th out of 35 qualifying quarterbacks. And percentage of dropbacks that were under pressure, which was only 17.9. So, he's been kept super clean. And it's led to a, they've been pretty good. So let's go to the next game: Carolina versus the Chargers. The Chargers were 6-point favorites coming into this game. Carolina covered that and won the game. Like I said, this was an overreaction in the McCaffrey injury, and it's like to cover 6 points, you actually have to score points, and the Chargers don't do that well. So I like. But they could have won the game on that hook and ladder. But and I know Panthers fans wanted them to win that game on that hook and ladder because they want the number 1 overall pick. But that's Washington's number 1 overall pick. Or probably New York. Both teams. Jets and Giants. But the Chargers aren't a good team. They're 27th in EPA per. They're 27th in EPA per play. They're like 30th in points per game. They don't score the football well. So I don't know how a team that doesn't score the football gets to be favored at 6 points. I mean, it was an overreaction to McCaffrey, and losing McCaffrey probably makes the offense a tad bit better from a standpoint of you're not going to give 700 carries and 700 targets to your running back in the backfield, and those can go to guys like DJ Moore, who had only 2 receptions but 32 yards per reception. Curtis Samuel got involved a bit more. Teddy Bridgewater got the ball out quick today. He made sure he got the ball out quick to mitigate the great Chargers pass rush, as he had a hold on. I have to get to the weak filter. He had a 2.3 time to throw. 58% of his dropbacks came in under 2.5 seconds. So Teddy Bridgewater got the ball out quick to mitigate the effects of that Chargers pass rush that gave Mahomes some issues. I was higher on the Panthers coming into the season than a lot of people. I didn't think they'd bottom out because the way their roster's constructed, they're really not built to bottom out. Like, they drafted in a way in which you have Teddy Bridgewater, a quarterback that might not bottom you out, or make, like, they're like a mediocre team. That's how they're built. So, yeah, they beat the Chargers, who I thought were terrible. And, I mean, Justin Herbert wasn't awful today. He threw another pretty bad interception. Like, his interceptions are, like, bad, but he's still making really good throws at the same time. So, I mean, he should probably be the starter going forward over Tyrod Taylor. So, but I mean, and then the memes with Justin Herbert when he got hurt, he doesn't want to go to the doctor. Man, the Chargers. But yeah, they're a bad offense. So them being favored 6 points didn't make sense. And I mean, they played fine. Like, they weren't like a juggernaut or anything. But like, Justin Herbert made some really good throws, threw a bad pick, and yeah, I mean, Herbert is the way I compared him to, I guess, I don't like player comps, but he's like somewhat of a more controlled Josh Allen, as he's gonna make throws, miss some throws, do a little bit of something with his legs, and overall, he might not be that good, but he was gonna make plays that reel you in. But on to the next game, another 6-point favorite falling. Detroit versus Arizona. Arizona loses this game 23-6. Lions cover the +5. I mean, Arizona, I thought they were overrated coming into this week, and that kind of manifested itself today. They turned the ball over a ton. Jeff Okudah made a really nice play on one of those. He got an interception drop. Murray wasn't good. Well, I don't know. I can't say that because he made some really good throws, like a really good throw down the sideline, but they don't really have they don't target the middle of the field and the intermediate levels of the field often enough. Like, when you have a guy like Jarrett Davis playing in the middle of the field for the Lions, like, you should be attacking Jarrett Davis. He's not a good linebacker. Instead, you're going all the way to, like, they only really target the outside, so they don't go across the middle of the field, which is, I mean, kind of makes sense, because, I mean, Kyler Murray hasn't been good throwing to that part of the field, and frankly, probably can't see that part of the field, but, Kyler Murray wasn't good today. Matthew Stafford, on the other hand, played better than he has the other games of the season. They ran the ball a ton, and AP wasn't efficient, but they still ran the ball a ton. Kenny Golladay was back. He made some really good plays. Had that touchdown, but like, okay, Matthew Stafford played closer to how I expected Stafford to play this season. Like, he still wasn't like perfect, but he was much better than he has been this season. And they ended up winning the game. They only scored 26 points off of like 5 Arizona turnovers, but Yeah, Arizona's offense is really like passing the ball. Their offense isn't that good, but Kyler Murray broke Jeff Okudah's ankles. He is a really good runner of the football, though passing it, he hasn't been as great passing the ball. So yeah, he hasn't been as good passing the ball as he has been running it. Like their passing offense has been pretty blah. Pretty blah. And the running offense has really been what's kept the team going, which isn't what you really want to rely on. I mean, when it's your quarterback running, I mean, it is more efficient, but like relying on your running game to win you these games really isn't a good idea and a great strategy to be a good team. And they ended up losing this game because they just don't throw the ball that well. Like their passing offense isn't like it's a bunch of screens, a bunch of hitches. Everyone talks about Deandre Hopkins catches total. Like half of them, like I'd say probably 80% of them are like either negative depth of target or like under 5 yards. Like he is not getting like he's not getting targeted down the field as often as he probably should. Andy Isabella is finally starting to come kind of into his own. He's playing better than he has ever in his career. He's getting more snaps than he has also. But Andy Isabella has been better. This week he had 4 catches. Like he's getting more involved. Like he had 9 catches all of last season. So yeah, but like DeAndre Hopkins isn't getting targeted down the field though. So like he has a 7.1 yards per catch, 5 of which come after the catch. So if we were to look at what a 11.1 per reception would rank last year, I mean, I could close the filter down a little bit more, but it would put you at 78th. It would put you at 78th. So like he's really not going down the field that often. And it's really limiting the offense. Like the offense is like short. Like they don't attack every area. Like they have a weird offense, a really weird offense. But let's get on to the next game with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the Denver Broncos. This is a game where Tom Brady's stats finally start to match the way he's been playing all season. And even still, this offense kind of stalled in the second half, though. But, yeah. Mike Evans had like 2 catches, 2 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That's a really interesting stat line. But, yeah, Tom Brady's stats finally start to match how the way he's been playing all year. And this probably isn't even as good as the other games that he's played. So, yeah. Tom Brady's been pretty good this year, and the stats haven't matched up. And they finally do match up today as they just take care of business after over the Broncos. Jeff Driscoll got benched this game. Jeff Driscoll is not a good quarterback. When I did my predictions for this game, I had them with Blake Bortles at quarterback, and he didn't play. I don't think he like cleared all like the and like whatever. This Broncos team, I was actually lower on them anyway coming into the season than a lot of people were. People were crowning them as like this playoff team, this sneaky playoff team. Like I didn't think they were good. They don't have Drew Lock though, which is a pretty massive caveat. But I never thought that Drew Lock was that good either. I mean, I liked them pretty good amount coming out of college, but in the NFL, with the sample size we had, he wasn't that good. But Jeff Driscoll, terrible. And Cortland Sutton's out. And this Broncos team the future's looking bleak. Or this season's future is looking bleak for the Broncos. Very bleak. But let's get on to the Seattle Seahawks versus the Dallas Cowboys. Now, the next game we have Seattle versus Dallas. This was a pretty fun game, high scoring, 31-38. Seattle Seahawks covered 5.5. And Russell Wilson looks great. This probably wasn't his best game, though. Like, statistically, he still had 5 touchdowns. But I wouldn't say it was his best game of the season. He also had some stuff left on the table by DK Metcalf. He had a whole touchdown left on the table because of DK Metcalf kind of like letting up. But then DK Metcalf righted his wrongs. And Russell Wilson dropped another dime. He is playing well overall this season. This was more a lot of schemed up, like, red zone stuff. Like, there's a lot of teams scheming up red zone stuff. Like I said with Buffalo, the same thing happened with Seattle. Like, Russell Wilson's playing, like, arguably the best, like, probably the best quarterback in the league right now. But his stats are a bit inflated because of some schemed up stuff, like that screen to Chris Carson. He had a drag route to Tyler Lockett that he didn't do much on. Had a pair of red zone touchdowns this week that were schemed up wide open, and it was a pretty easy play. Like, that's what it takes to be an MVP, though. It takes supporting cast to play well. It takes great play calling, and it takes you to also play well, because you need the play calling to kind of fluff your stats up, but it's kind of done for Russell Wilson. But yeah, he's playing. The Seahawks continue to pass the ball, even though they ran it a bit more than they normally do. Well, 6 of those were Russell Wilson runs, so that's a bit different. They ran with their running backs, only 20 times, which is better than normal. Russell threw 40 times, which is also much better than which is also much more than he normally does. So, yeah, the Cowboys, on the other hand, Dak played pretty well. Like, Dak's been pretty good this season. He made some really good throws to Michael Gallup. Also had an INT drop that ended up popping up into a catch that was a pretty big gain. But yeah, their offense, like, Zeke was terrible today. He dropped like 8 passes. He wasn't good. Zeke Elliott. He wasn't really good. He ran the ball. He was awful running the ball. He was 14 rushes for 34 yards, 2.4 yards per attempt. He was bad running the ball. He was terrible running the ball. And they gave him the ball probably 14 times too. Let me stop. But they gave him the ball a bit too much. But to not be playing well at all, because he was at like a 1.7 per carry at one point in the game, and they were still giving him the ball. This Dallas team is pretty good, though. Like, their offense has been pretty good, but then again, they just went up against a pretty bad Seahawks defense that didn't even have Jamal Adams and other guys injured. So, but like, either way, even when they had Jamal Adams, their defense as a whole still wasn't great. But yeah, but this Dallas offense is pretty good. Interestingly enough, they're tied first in the division with Washington, and Washington's garbage. But I still think Dallas is going to end up running away with this division, since the Eagles look bad, Redskins look bad, or Washington looks bad. I think Dallas will end up running away with the division. But, yeah. Yeah, Seattle marches on 3-0. They keep letting Russ cook, which makes this team so much more dangerous, though their defense might be pretty deficient. If their offense is going to play this well, they could beat any team in the NFL. Now let's go to the Sunday Night Football game. Green Bay Packers versus the New Orleans Saints. Saints fall to the Packers 37-3. Saints came into this game favored. Packers won, covered 3.5. The better quarterback won. Yeah, Alvin Kamara really put this team on his back. Like I rarely say that for running backs, but he had like 100,000 yards after the catch. He was great, and it's like he received he on his receptions. He ran on his receptions. He was at like I'm trying to get to the number. He was at like over 10 yards per attempt. I'm pretty sure, which is pretty rare, especially for the volume he received. Yeah, he was at 10.7 yards per attempt on 13 catches, which is pretty rare for a running back. Normally, running backs are closer to like 8, 7 yards per attempt. 9, 10 is probably the really high end. But when you compare that number to receivers, it's pretty low. So, yeah. Alvin Kamara is great right now. Well, he's been great, but Alvin Kamara is he's been great, but Alvin Kamara is just great. Aaron Rodgers, I wouldn't say this definitely his worst game of the season. I'd say he made some big throws. He missed some throws. He didn't put the ball in harm's way that often. He didn't put the ball in harm's way at all because he's Aaron Rodgers, really. So, Aaron Jones wasn't nearly as good as he was last week. Alan Lazard, I don't know if he's the guy you want beside Devontae Adams because he's not a consistent threat to get open, but he can be some sort of player, I guess. Drew Brees continues to not really push the ball down the field. He looks really hesitant to do it as well. He looks really hesitant to do so as well. So, this Saints offense is just so like not unexplosive unless Kamara is breaking 9 tackles in one play to create these massive plays. But yeah, they keep on putting Taysom Hill in. They live by the Taysom Hill. Well, I wouldn't even say they live by the Taysom Hill. They die by the Taysom Hill, and they die by the Taysom Hill. Like they put in Taysom Hill to throw like their deep shots. They put him in. Like he didn't throw the ball, but that's where he was looking at least. Pulled it down. Like why put in Jayson? Why put in? Whoa, I almost called him Jayson Tatum. Why put in Jameis? Okay, whatever. Why put in Taysom Hill when you have Jameis Winston on the sideline, who is actually relatively good at that stuff, pushing the ball downfield? Last season at least, Jameis Winston finished the season with a adjusted completion percentage on deep balls of 44.4. That's not that good. Wait, hold on. But that's like that. He was 15th. He's better than Taysom Hill doing that. He's better than Taysom Hill doing that. So why put in Taysom Hill to do that? Why put in Taysom Hill, period? It's like whatever. But they die by the Taysom Hill, and they die by the Taysom Hill. Aaron Rodgers still looks good, but not as good as he has the whole. Like, this is his worst game of the year, right? In my opinion, at least. He made a couple really good throws, but other than those, he really wasn't. Yeah, he wasn't great. Yeah. Drew Brees, he doesn't look good right now. Well, he looks good, I guess, but he doesn't look like Drew Brees. Like, his accuracy isn't really, like, his ball location accuracy isn't really the same. He made a really good throw in the red zone to Jared Cook, but he's not the same Drew Brees. Aaron Rodgers, on the other hand, though, looks like he is back to being the same old Aaron Rodgers. He is, in terms of time to throw, average time to throw, Aaron Rodgers is back up to like 2.7 after being at like 2.1 in week 1 or 2.25 in week 1. And in week 2, Aaron Rodgers was also 2.39. So that rhythmic passing and the big plays thing isn't here anymore. Really. He was back to being old Aaron Rodgers dancing around. I had a feeling that would probably happen. Like, the Saints' defense is far better than the Vikings and, who they play last? And the Lions. So, I had a feeling that this would happen. You would get a worse version of Aaron Rodgers, and that happened. But he wasn't too much worse. This team is dangerous. Aaron Rodgers, as long as he continues to play well, will make this team dangerous and a threat to beat literally anybody in the NFL on any day. So, yeah, then let's get on to the Monday Night Football game. The showdown between Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson. Now, this game didn't really go as expected. Baltimore's offense was much worse than really anybody could have expected coming into the game. The market loved, a lot of people love Baltimore. The market loved Baltimore. Baltimore was getting a lot of love coming into this game, mainly because the Chiefs had a pretty lackluster performance against the Chargers. But the Chargers run a game plan or have a team in which is kind of the only game plan the Kansas City Chiefs have struggled against. Those teams that can get pressure with their front four and have 7 capable, good coverage players playing coverage. And only 2 teams in the NFL can really run that. And they just so happen to be part of that. Not part of that, but just so happen to be the teams that run that Carolina, Pete Carroll cover 3 scheme. And that's the 49ers and the Chargers. So those teams don't blitz a lot, but they get a lot of pass rush because they have really good front fours. And that's the only game plan that's the only game plan that Patrick Mahomes has legitimately struggled against. Baltimore, on the other hand, hasn't trailed in games. I wouldn't say that's the reason they lost the game, but they abandoned running the ball early. And it's not because Lamar can't throw why they lost the game. It's more of like the receivers were dropping passes. Lamar did not have his best game today. Like, I don't know. Baltimore, like, Lamar had multiple dropped interceptions. He had multiple dropped passes by the receivers, but like the passing offense was just disjointed. They ran the ball well, but they got down early, so them running the ball wasn't really going to help too much. So, yeah. The Ravens, they should be fine, though. They'll have a bounce-back game in a major fashion. Stomp Washington's face in next week. They're like 14-point favorites. So, yeah, but this definitely wasn't the best Lamar Jackson game, and it was arguably, potentially, maybe the best Mahomes game. I don't know. He was really good. Like, I was tweeting during the game, just had a thread going on of Mahomes is silly. Then I just really, really silly, and really silly. Andy Reid called a great game. Mahomes executed and played an amazing game, and the Chiefs won. There's not too many games of quarterback play you'll have better than that. Mahomes is still very much the best quarterback in the NFL, and he just came back to show you guys against one of the best defenses in the NFL that he is still that guy, and he's still the best quarterback in the NFL. Not Russell Wilson, not whoever else you want, like Aaron Rodgers. No, it's still Patrick Mahomes. He came back to show everybody, all the doubters, all the naysayers, he's still the best quarterback. So, yeah. Patrick Mahomes was phenomenal. Just dropped dimes in. I don't know if he even missed a pass. Like, the only mistake I think he made was it was like a flat route to Darrell Williams where the pass was a little bit high, and then they ended up not converting on 3rd down, I think. That's like literally the only mistake he made. He was almost quite perfect this game. He made that throw to Mecole Hardman, which Mecole dropped. Like, Mahomes was great. And Lamar also made some really great throws, but overall he wasn't nearly as good. The pocket presence wasn't really... He took a ton of sacks trying to extend plays and create juking around, spinning around, running around a ton. These are like he's had back-to-back games where he's played like that. And that's not typically how he plays in the pocket, at least. Like his time to throw this season, this game pending is like 2.7 or like 2.8-ish. He's like top 3 in the league in average snap to pass. Like they probably need to scheme up some more quick passing for Lamar Jackson to kind of help out this offense. Like I think that's what this offense is missing. It's like run play, probably a shot play to the seams, or like there's not enough quick passing game in this offense, in that Ravens offense, I'd say. But yeah, Baltimore, I think they're fine. Kansas City showed that they're obviously fine. Mahomes is still great. Let's not forget that. Even though he wasn't playing well, throughout the whole season, but like he was okay. And it's like the offense before this game, and even parts of this game looked like a different offense than it typically has. Like the explosive plays just weren't there passing the ball. Like those long shot plays weren't there passing the ball. Mahomes had the lowest ADOT. I feel like there was more screens, all this type of stuff. Andy Reid calling some goal line wizardry twice with Eric Fisher getting a touchdown. And then that underhand to Anthony Sherman. Those are some pretty great plays. Andy Reid's amazing. And so is Mahomes. And so are the Chiefs. But this is the end of the video. There will be no fantasy takeaways. I probably won't do that anymore. I'll probably just do the preview with the start sit and all that type of stuff. But yeah, I'm going to see you guys on Thursday. Or maybe earlier if I do a mock draft. But I've teased this for so long and it might not ever come out. It's going to come out eventually, but we'll see. Probably after week 4, I might do a quarterly mock draft. Week 4, mid-season. Week 12, end of the season. That might be how I do it. So, well, like after the end of the playoffs. Well, I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, that's the Untitled Football Podcast, and it's over. Peace.